Hello, I'm Kris Clark, and I have the pleasure of reading for you today. I'm going to be reading a chapter out of the book Travels in West Africa, which was first published in 1897. It was written by Mary Kingsley. The chapter is called Elephant Hunt. I must now speak briefly on the most important article with which the fan deals, namely ivory. His methods of collecting this are several, and many a wild story the handles of your table knives could tell you if their ivory has passed through fan hands. For ivory is everywhere an evil thing, before which the quest for gold sinks into a parlor game, and when its charms seize such a tribe as the fans, conclusions pass their careers. A very common way of collecting a tooth is to kill the person who owns one. Therefore, in order to prevent this catastrophe happening to you yourself when you have one, it is advisable, unless you are a powerful person in your own village, to bury or sink the said tooth and say nothing about it until the trader comes into your district or you get a chance of smuggling it quietly down to him. Some of these private ivories are kept for years and years before they reach the trader's hands, and quite a third of the ivory you see coming on board a vessel to go to Europe is dark from this keeping. Some teeth a lovely brown, like a well-colored meerschaum. Others quite black, and gnawed by this strange little creature, much heard of and abused, yet little known in ivory ports, the ivory rat. This squirrel-like creature was first brought to Europe by Paul du Chaillu. As far as I know, no further specimen has been secured. I got two, but I am ashamed to say I lost them. Du Chaillu called it Cervus eborivus. Its main point, as may be imagined, is its teeth. The incisors in the upper jaw are long and closely set together. Those in the lower are still longer, and as they seem always to go in between the upper teeth, I wonder how the animal gets its mouth shut. The feet are hairless and somewhat like those of a squirrel. The tail is long and marked by transverse bars, and it is not carried over the back. Over the eyes and on either side of the mouth are very long, stiff bristles. The mischief these little creatures play with buried ivory is immense, because for some inscrutable reason, they seem to prefer the flavor of the points of the teeth, the most valuable part. Ivory, however, that is obtained by murder is private ivory. The public ivory trade among the fans is carried on in a way more in accordance with European ideas of a legitimate trade. The greater part of this ivory is obtained from dead elephants. There are in this region certain places where the elephants are said to go to die. A locality in one district pointed out to me such a place was a great swamp in the forest, a swamp that evidently was deep in the middle, for from its dark waters no swamp plant or tree grew, and evidently its shores sloped suddenly, for the band of swamp plants around its edge was narrow. It is just possible that during the rainy season, when most of the surrounding country would be underwater, elephants might stray into this natural trap and get drowned, and on the drying up of the waters be discovered, and the fact being known, be regularly sought for by the natives cognizant of this. I inquired carefully whether these places where the elephants came to die always had water in them, but they said no, and in one district spoke of a valley or round-shaped depression in among the mountains. But natives were naturally disinclined to take a stranger to these ivory mines, and a white person who was caught, as anyone who has been in touch must catch, ivory fever, is naturally equally disinclined to give localities. A certain percentage of ivory collected by the fans is from live elephants, and I am bound to admit that their method of hunting animals is disgracefully unsportsmanlike. A herd of elephants is discovered by rubber hunters or by deportations on plantations, and the whole village, men, women, children, babies, and dogs, turn out into the forest and stalk the monsters into a suitable ravine, taking care not to scare them. When they have gradually edged the elephants on into a suitable place, they fell trees and wreathe them very roughly together with bush rope, all around an immense enclosure, still taking care not to scare the animals into a rush. This fence is quite inadequate to stop any elephant in itself, but it is made effective by being smeared with certain things, the smell whereof the elephants detest so much that when they wander up to it, they turn back disgusted. I need hardly remark that this preparation is made by the witch doctors and its constituents a secret of theirs, and I was only able to find out some of them. Then poisoned plantains are placed within the enclosure, and the elephants eat these and grow drowsier and drowsier. If the water supply within the enclosure is a pool, it is poisoned, but if it is a running stream, this cannot be done. During this time, the crowd of men and women spend their days round the enclosure, ready to turn back any elephant who may attempt to break out, going to and fro to the village for their food. Their nights they spend in little bough shelters by the enclosure, watching more vigilantly than by day, as the elephants are more active at night, it being their usual feeding time. During the whole time, the witch doctor is hard at work making incantations and charms, with a view to finding out the proper time to attack the elephants. In my opinion, his decision fundamentally depends on his knowledge of the state of poisoning the animals are in, but his version is that he gets his information from the forest spirits. When, however, he has settled the day, the best hunters seal into the enclosure and take up safe positions in the trees, and the outer crowd set light to the ready-built fires and make the greatest uproar possible, and fire upon the staggering, terrified elephants as they attempt to break out. The hunters in the trees fire down on them as they rush past, the fatal point at the back of the skull being well exposed to them. When the animals are nearly exhausted, those men who do not possess guns dash into the enclosure, and the men who do reload and join them, and the work is then completed. One elephant hunt I chanced upon at the final stage had taken 2 months' preparation, and although the plan sounds safe enough, there's really a good deal of danger left in it with all of the drugging and juju. There were 8 elephants killed that day, and 3 burst through everything, sending energetic spectators flying and squashing 2 men and a baby as flat as a botanical specimen. The subsequent proceedings were impressive. The whole of the people gorged themselves on the meat for days, and great chunks of it were smoked over the fires in all directions. A certain portion of the flesh of the hind leg was taken by the witch doctor for juju, and was supposed to be put away by him with certain suitable incantations in the recesses of the forest, his idea being apparently either to give rise to more elephants or to induce the forest spirits to bring more elephants into the district. Meanwhile, the carcasses were going bad, rapidly bad, and the smell for a mile round was strong enough to have taken the paint off a door. Moreover, there were flies, most of the flies in West Africa, I imagine, but I will say no more. I thought before this experience that I had touched bottom in smells when once I spent the outside of a week in a village on the sandbank in front of which a portly hippopotamus who had been shot upriver got stranded and proceeded energetically to melt into its elemental grasses. But that was a passing whiff to this.